Hi there! I will introduce myself for anyone who hasn't been here before, even though we're now going into episode 3 already. My name is Florence, I'm 21 years old and I'm a computer science student and a very enthusiastic knitter from Cambridge, England. Everything I knit is beige around here, in case you can't tell. Today I'm back with a new haircut. This is thanks to those cute little stalk scissors that everyone uses for yarn. Turns out they're multi-purpose. I'm sure I made a lot of people who look after their scissors carefully very uncomfortable, knowing that I use them to cut my own hair as well, but sorry. They're the only scissors I have and know the location of. I feel like that's a great start to what is going to be probably quite a chaotic episode. Firstly, I'm currently babysitting 2 small dogs. One of them is a puppy and therefore inherently just naughty, and so I have to be constantly aware of my surroundings because he'll be finding things to chew which he shouldn't be chewing. And the other is just a naughty dog. So that's going to be a challenge. Additionally, I have a lot to go through today. I have, I believe, 4 finished objects, 3 work in progress pieces and 2 swatches for future projects to show you. That's a lot to go through. So I'm not going to mess about too much. I will briefly mention what I'm wearing before we start. It's a nice way to showcase older projects, I guess, that I knitted before I started filming this podcast. This is definitely an older project. I knitted this right after the pattern release, I think, so probably over a year ago now. It was one of my first pieces that I ever posted on Instagram, I think. This is the camisole number 5 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. It is knitted in merino from Knitting for Olive, which is my favourite yarn to use for summer tops. More on that later this episode. And the shade is Fennel Seed, which is my favourite shade that Knitting for Olive make. I need to get some more. I would really like to make a cardigan in it. But also I keep wanting to draft a striped t-shirt in white and fennel seed too. I think that'd be so cute. It's not really the time of year to be designing summer knitwear, I guess, but oh well. I knit this pretty much exactly to pattern. It's knitted in a size small, I believe. My weight has fluctuated a bit lately, so it's hard to keep track of which size I knitted. But I think back when I knitted this, I just made a small in everything without checking any measurements anyway. The only change I made is I didn't do the double knitted, I think it's supposed to be a double knitted collar, but this is just stitches picked up. I knitted 3 centimetres or something and knit 1 purl 1 rib and then folded it over and knitted it down. I was in a rush to get it finished and I was a bit scared of trying new techniques, so I did what I knew would work, and it's okay, but if I knitted it again, I would definitely follow the collar instructions in the pattern. I love this camisole. Another thing I do next time is I think I would do decreases on the sides. I want to show you this part, but I'm wearing a bra, so my bra straps will be on display. But it has these nice double knitted armhole edges. Thank you, Corelia. It's had a huge amount of wear, and I have to say the yarn has held up beautifully. I wear this probably a couple of times a week all the way through the summer, and it looks pretty much brand new in my opinion. Yes, lovely pattern, which I strongly recommend, great fun to knit and a wonderful yarn choice. I have put the things that I'm going to talk about first right at the bottom of my pile, which is great. I'm going to begin with 2 work in progress pieces from last video, which are now finished objects, starting with the one which is the most exciting for me. This is my sporty knit skirt. Which side is the front? This is the front. This doesn't look very different to how it looked last video when I had the skirt part all done. The difference is, it's kind of hard to show. There are now inset shorts underneath. I was amazed at how quick they were to knit compared to the skirt. The skirt has quite a lot of volume in it, so it took a long time and the shorts just sped by. I talk about this piece in a lot more depth in the last episode if you're interested, but to sum it up, this is my own pattern. It's currently in testing. It's knitted in Drops Puna, which is 100% alpaca, which is a very lovely yarn, which I've never really had a use for before because I feel like it's a little bit too drapey and the stitches look a bit too uneven for me to want to use it for most jumpers. But this, it was absolutely perfect for. It's knitted on 3.5mm needles, so it's a compromise between being lightweight, but also being not too slow to knit. And it has an elasticated waistband and inset shorts. I have to say, this is one of those pieces which I'm really proud of. And genuinely, since finishing it, I have worn it so much. Because I'm such a boring person when it comes to my colour choices, I found that loads of the knitwear that I already own pairs perfectly with this. I have a bralette, a camisole and a cardigan, all of which match it perfectly. So if you look on my Instagram, there are a lot of pictures of me in cute two-piece knit sets since I finished this. I just genuinely wear it when I have a day around the house and I want to feel a little bit cute, but also comfortable. It's just the perfect thing, and I am totally planning on knitting another one alongside my test knitters. It's just that I don't think I have any yarn that I want to use right now, so I'm going to have to buy some, and it's the summer, so I'm extra broke right now because I don't have my student loan coming through, so money is very limited. In any case, I wanted a black one, maybe without the shorts, to wear in the winter with black tights underneath as more of a sort of daytime piece than a loungewear piece. The shorts were fairly straightforward, but I did have to rip them out and do them again when I was figuring it out. Because they're not visible when you're wearing the skirt, it doesn't matter too much how they look. It's more important that they feel comfortable, so they need to be roomy and not tight anywhere really, but also they need to lie flat enough that they don't disrupt how the skirt sits. So I had to figure out how best to do that, and the two choices that I made really were to pick up fewer stitches than there are in the skirt so that it lays flat all the way around, and then gradually increase those stitches back out starting relatively early on to make sure there's room for the hips. So they start off with slow increases and then it speeds up before you divide for the legs. They have 2x2 rib, which I felt matched the overall look of the outside part of the skirt quite well, and then I used a surprisingly stretchy bind-off. The surprisingly stretchy bind-off is my go-to for 2x2 rib because it's not like invisible or anything, but it looks good with any type of rib, and also it gives that stretch factor that I really want when I'm working with a loungewear piece that I'm going to wear around the house. I just don't want to have to worry about how tight it is on my thighs. I have quite chunky legs, so it's always a concern of mine. I knit it in the size B, I think, based on the sizing that I currently have. That's still subject to change, I guess, before I release the pattern, which I'm hoping will come out at the end of September, around my birthday. Although this is a lot of knitting. I'm very aware of the fact that, I don't know how many stitches this is, like 300 or 400 maybe by the time you get to the bottom of the skirt, maybe up to 500 for some of the bigger sizes. It's a lot. Even though you don't actually knit very much with the maximum number of stitches, maybe only 4 or 5 centimeters, I am a pretty quick knitter, and the bottom part of the skirt just felt like such a drag for me to get through, which is quite unusual. And so I'm very conscious of the fact that my testers have a lot to get done, and I want to give them plenty of time to finish. And so I gave them a couple of months, I think, but even so, getting it done by the end of September might be a bit of a push. So I may have to postpone that a little bit, but provisionally, I was hoping for the end of September. Is there anything else I want to say about the skirt? I don't think so. I've just worn it so much. I want another one. I love it so much. I'm just genuinely so proud of this pattern and coming up with a piece that I want to wear all the time. I feel so good. Anyway, on to something less successful. I was pretty excited about this in the last episode. This is my Corelia. The pattern is by Midori Hirose, and mine is knitted in filcolana pernilla for this main cream colour. And then I used rowan alpaca classic held double for the colourwork. And it does have this really beautiful sort of woven colourwork that you do as you knit. It's not embroidered on afterwards, which everyone thinks it is when they see it, but there were 18 tiny little skeins of yarn dangling off the yoke while I was working on it. So last time I had just finished the yoke, and I was feeling really good about it. I was really excited. And I don't know if this is a common experience, but this has happened to me twice now, so I'll explain and see if any of you guys can relate. Sometimes I see pictures of a garment on Ravelry or Instagram, and I think it looks lovely, and I knit it. And I knit it to pattern, and I put it on, and I don't like how it looks on me. Like, I don't like the fit, and I feel like I've messed up somewhere. But then when I go back and look at the pictures, I realise that it fits that way on everyone, and I just wasn't paying attention to it before I knitted it. Like, it's a fit feature, which I know I don't like, but I didn't notice. And for me, it's always the same thing. It's the fitted sleeves with a wide body. The first project which caused this issue for me was the sweater number 11 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which so many people have, and I think it looks beautiful. But for me, it's just a very, very wide body with very skinny sleeves. And I did knit the wrong size. I should have knitted the size 1, and I didn't. But actually, I'm planning on frogging that jumper this year, which is very sad because it's very precious to me. But I just don't wear it because the body is too wide and the sleeves are too small. And that is sort of how I feel about this one as well. I ended up knitting the sleeves completely straight with no decreases at all, even for the cuff. So you can see how small this cuff is here. That's how many stitches are in the sleeve all the way down. So here there is not that much ease. And I haven't measured it because I mentioned in the last video there's loads more information about my yarn choice and the sizing and stuff then, because I did knit the size medium M1. There are 2 medium sizes for this pattern, but I knitted on the wrong size needles. So I was hoping to get somewhere between an extra small and a small. I haven't measured the garment to see how close it was. I did do maths then and it seemed like it would work, so I will definitely measure this and see. But I do think part of it is that's just how this pattern is designed. I don't like a fitted sleeve, I like my sleeves wide, and I should have paid more attention to the pictures where people had a nice amount of positive ease in the body and quite tight sleeves before I decided to knit this piece in the first place. So, as you can see, I haven't woven my ends in here, which is not like me. I normally weave my ends in before I block anything. So that is because I have 2 options what I'm going to do with this. I'm currently undecided on which I will go for. Option 1 is I gift it to my mom. It looks really good on her, she tried it on, she's about the same size as me and it fits her well, and she isn't so against a fitted sleeve on a jumper compared to me, so maybe I will do that. The second thing I was considering doing is ripping out the entire sleeve and just knitting ribbing here to make it a t-shirt. I think that way I don't have so much tight sleeve going on, and I did mention in the last episode that I was considering knitting this as a shorter sleeve jumper anyway. Because it is a little bit lighter than some of my other jumpers, I feel like I could get away with wearing it in warmer weather, and so it could totally be a nice spring or summer jumper with short sleeves. At the time I was planning on maybe knitting the sleeves to this type of length, but I think it would work well as a t-shirt too, and I think a fitted look is something I'm more okay with if it's a t-shirt than a full jumper. So yes, this is a finished object, I guess, but it may make an appearance in a future video with some changes to it. I'm still undecided. So, I still have 2 more finished objects. They're a little bit smaller though. I guess I'll talk about this one first. Oh, still has knitting needles inside it. This was a test knit for, their Instagram name is Garnogslikt. Probably pronouncing that wrong. It's the same designer who designed the blue square neck camisole, which I wear all the time. I think I've convinced quite a lot of you guys to also knit. Basically, I'm their #1 fan, and I think that was their first pattern. So they asked me to test knit for them, which I'm very honoured to be asked to do. And this is an accessory. It's called the herringbone purse. It's a pretty cute pattern. It comes in 2 different sizes. So this is the small one, which is like a little pouch. Although I was kind of surprised at how large it is. Like, it's always kind of hard to tell on camera, but I think if you knit it to half height, it would be a pencil case, but it's twice the height. It also comes in a larger version, which is this big? I don't know, I haven't knitted it yet, although I think I might. So it's knitted in a DK weight yarn held double, and it's knitted on 9mm needles, so it's really quick. I knitted this over the course of a few days because I didn't have all the needles that I needed, but I think you could probably knit it in an afternoon without too much issue if you felt up to it. The yarn I used, I'll try and show you close up. Because I was asked to test knit and it was a pretty short notice, I think I had about 2 weeks to finish the bag after I was asked to test knit. I didn't have any yarn in the stash that was really suitable, so I had to go pick some up, and that meant going to my local yarn shop, which I mentioned before is a pretty acrylic and the odd superwash wool heavy kind of yarn shop, rather than having a lot of the types of yarns that I like to use. So I went in and I spoke to the lovely people who work there, and they suggested this yarn to me. I think the pattern calls for 2 strands of double Sunday by Sander's Gun, which is a non-superwash DK weight merino. There is a bumblebee. I'm so sorry if you can hear the buzzing. The yarn that I've used, I believe it is King Cole Merino Blend DK. It's a superwash wool and merino blend, so it's 100% wool, but it's sort of unspecified how much of that is merino. In any case, the reason why I got this, rather than hunting around further for a non-superwash wool, is that I really, really like the colourway. I mean, how pretty is that? It's neutral, but it has all these little colourful flecks in it, which are perfect. They just add a little bit of something while keeping it neutral. I used just over 2 skeins. I just had to break into the third to do the last sort of centimetre at the top. And the pattern, while it looks pretty simple, actually has a lot of little things that I wouldn't have thought of that are explained quite well. The designer is Norwegian, and I think they translate all the patterns themselves, so I was really impressed at how clear the English version was. I think it'll still have a couple more changes before it's released, but it was a pretty good, well-translated pattern first try. Just for transparency, I always do this when I make a little pouch like this with an unusual stitch. There always ends up being a sort of seam where the beginning of round is. So that is what it looks like. It's not too obnoxious, I don't think. Also, I blocked this, which I don't know whether it was a good idea to or not. It looked quite good already. The stitches didn't really need evening out, and I sort of flatted it out. It actually has a rectangular base. It's not supposed to be flat like this. In any case, I already know what I'm going to use this for. I had to buy a load more needles to knit this. It's on 9mm needles. My needle set goes 6, 7, 8, 10, which is really convenient. So I had to buy 80cm and 40cm 9mm needles, and I only realised afterwards that I already had a set of 9mm needles somewhere. So I've decided to use this as a needle case. I'm sorry, this will probably disgust you guys, but I am so untidy with my knitting supplies. I don't have a place for needles, so all of my needles are just left in whatever drawer or cupboard I put them in, or like in a project bag with the project I use them for, or sitting on my windowsill or something. And that is why I've bought duplicates of so many sizes of needles, and I can never find the ones that I need. So I'm going to keep all my needles in here. Currently the needles poke through when I put it in because it's not yet lined. I did sew a zip in. Please don't look too closely at my stitches, they are abysmal, but I will sew in a lining that will cover that and hopefully stop the needles from stabbing out of the bag. I got some grey cotton for that. I think the designer has said that there will be instructions in the pattern for sewing the lining. They're not currently translated, so I don't have them, but I imagine they'll be coming pretty soon. Otherwise, I've made a few pouches like this. I've done the Honey Clutch by Petite Knit, I've done the Lulu Clutch by Corelia Fibres, and I've lined those, so I feel pretty comfortable. Oh, I've also done the Petite Knit Winter Clutch. At this point, I think I'm just pretty competent at sewing a zip and sewing a lining my own way, but I do think it will be explained in the pattern. I will show my needles actually while we're on the subject of needles, because I get asked about them quite a bit. When my needle case is visible in pictures and videos, a lot of people ask because I think they assume the case comes with the needles, but my case and my needles are separate. This is one of the most expensive things I own, my needle set, but I've knitted so much that I don't have any regrets at all about how much I spend on it because I use it every single day for hours pretty much. So the case is, I think it's called the Stockholm case by Mood Living. It's got my sister's hair on it, nice. My sister has bright red hair, so it's easy to differentiate. It is the Stockholm case by Mood Living, which is this lovely leather case with so many pockets. It's got 3 big pockets here. You can unzip down the middle of the entire bag, and so this whole section and this whole section are zip pockets. And then it has a bunch of different little pouches for all of our different needle sizes. I have more large needles up here as well. My needles, I truly believe these are the perfect needles. I use them for absolutely everything, no exceptions, because I find they're a pretty nice compromise between being smooth and shiny and not too much friction like a metal needle would be, but also a little bit grippy too. So these are bamboo needles. I'm not the biggest fan of birch needles. I used to use only metal, but I switched to bamboo when I got this set and I've never really looked back. These needles are by Seeknit KA. It's a Japanese company. They're gorgeous interchangeable needles. And I have 2 sets in here. All of these are from one set, and then I also have some little tiny ones here too. A lot of the accessories are also from Seeknit. This needle is, the crochet hook, and this pouch is just full of different size cables. And I've bought all of these separately over a long period of time, pretty much. Anyway, if anyone is interested in buying a very expensive and beautiful set of needles, I couldn't recommend this one enough. I really love it. And if anyone has any more questions about it, feel free to ask, because I've been using it for a pretty long time now, and so I feel like I know all there is to know. Anyway, I have another finished object now. So I was killing some time in Cambridge the other day. I was waiting for my boyfriend to finish work, because we were going to have our little anniversary date kind of thing. And so I decided to walk around town and go to Heifers and Waterstones and look at all the books, because I wanted to treat myself to a knitting book. I only have one knitting book. I have one of those big sort of books of techniques. I think it's the Debbie Bliss one. It's not really very exciting, but it's a very useful resource. And so I wanted to get something really pretty, and I think pretty much everybody has this book, but when I went and flicked through all of the books in Waterstones and Heifers to do with knitting, this was the one that I decided was the best. Both shops had it. This is 52 Weeks of Socks. It's published by Liner magazine, I think. So it has 52 beautiful sock patterns by all different designers. This is more socks than I ever need patterns for. I've never been much of a sock knitter. I obviously have very boring tasting colours, so socks are very boring for me because I don't like self-patterning yarns, I don't like colourful yarn, and so I just feel very limited to using only beige and cream and grey because I know that's what I wear, and knitting a great long stockinette tube on tiny needles in a single neutral colour is not a very exciting experience. So perhaps what I need is little lace and cable things to spice it up a bit. So within a week of buying this book, I had my first pair of socks finished. These are the Erica socks. I can find out who they're by looking up in the book. They're by Anya Hoyman. You can probably see them better in the picture than on my actual socks. I knitted these using filcolana arwetta in the shade Marzipan. They're not looking so great because they have been worn and it's fluffing up a little bit because this is a very soft superwash merino and nylon yarn. Just very silky feeling. Probably, I would guess, quite a bit less durable than other sock yarns. I certainly haven't had so much sort of fluffing up on others, although admittedly I did throw these on under boots and go for a dog walk in hot weather, so they have really been through it. They have this really lovely lace pattern, which I will attempt to show you. It's like little leaves and then these cute little squigglies too. I knitted the smaller size, pretty much exactly to the pattern, I think. I have very large but quite narrow feet. Well, not very large, but I'm 5'4", so I'm not tall at all, but I have UK size 7 feet. I don't know what that is in other countries' shoe sizes. Like a 40 EU, I think. So I knitted, the sock is supposed to end right after this leaf, but I knitted an extra like 10 rows or something of this side lace pattern and just one line of knit stitches surrounded by pearls here to get them to length. And I think for this pair of socks, they're a little bit short, which kind of appeals to me. I think it's a very cute kind of length. But I ended up using like 30 centimeters of the second skein of filcolana arwetta just to bind off the toe of the second sock. So I think I'm comfortable saying that if you don't have UK size 7 feet, if your feet are a size 5 or less, you can totally knit these with one skein of arwetta, which makes it a pretty affordable project, like £3, £4. Luckily, I actually had 3 skeins of arwetta. I don't remember what I bought 3 skeins of sock yarn for, but I did. So that works out really well because it's not like an awkward slightly less than a skein left, it's almost 2, and so I can knit a pair of slightly longer socks as well. Blocking these socks was a slightly interesting experience. I had a sock blocker, When I went to my uni room last year, I discovered that above the door, we had these two balconies, and one of the balconies I didn't really use, and above the door there was a little tiny hook, so you could hang something above the door. And because the door sat back in the door frame, it meant that there was air on both sides. So I discovered it was the perfect place to hang a sock blocker, because the socks dried really quickly with a bit of draft from the balcony door and getting air on both sides. And so I hung my sock blocker above the door. And it was one of those ones that's like a wire silhouette of a foot. And it looked so perfectly in place there and fitted right in that when I moved home from uni at the end of Michaelmas, I forgot it. And normally if you forget something in your room and it's like midway through the year, the bedders just put it in like left property. But apparently they thought it was rubbish because it was a sort of wire outline of a foot and maybe looked like packaging if you don't knit. And so my sock blocker got thrown away. I am a very broke student. I'm also very stubborn. I didn't want to buy a new one. And so I have to be careful not to dox myself because it has my address on the back. This is a cardboard box. I stood on it and I marked sort of the length of my foot, and then I drew a foot silhouette and cut it out. The cardboard actually wasn't big enough either, so I've like stuck multiple pieces together with sellotape. And then to stop the sellotape from detaching or the cardboard from collapsing, I just wrapped the whole thing in cling film. It's been really functional, like it worked really well. And what's more, I find that sock blockers sort of stretch the sock out quite a lot. I want it stretched just enough so that I can see the lace when it's lying flat so that it looks pretty, and also so I can see what it looks like when I'm storing my socks. But I don't want it to be stretched out too much. And so this is definitely a bit smaller, sort of width-wise, than a sock blocker for my size would normally be. So yes, I'm very happy with this and it was immensely successful. And if you too don't have a sock blocker and want to block like a broke uni girl, this is how I would recommend doing it. I think. My ball of yarn. I think that's all my finished objects. My camera is running out of battery, so I may have to take a break in a minute, but I may as well make a start with my work in progress pieces. I guess on the socks note, all my work in progresses have become one massive tangle here. I am making another sock from 52 Weeks of Socks. As soon as I cast the first pair off, I cast on another. This sock is the Camisoles sock. There's something like shining in the sky out of the window. I don't know if it's like a model plane or something, but it keeps catching the light and catching my attention, so I'm so sorry for how distracted I've been looking. This is the Camisoles sock. It's like a ribbed sock, but it has these cool little lace sections that alternate which rib they're on. I haven't done very much, so you maybe can't see very much. These socks are going to be slightly too small for me. The pattern called for you to cast on 72 stitches. I like my socks on the tighter side because I want them to sort of stay up, and also because my feet are already big, so it uses so much yarn otherwise. So I wasn't going to use 72 stitches. That was the smaller of the two sizes as well. The pattern was a 12 stitch repeat, so I cast on 60 stitches and I'm just doing one fewer repeat. It'll take a bit of fiddling. With all of these socks, I've kind of told myself that I'm going to knit the heel given in the pattern, because I've knitted quite a few socks. I normally do a short row heel or like a fish lips kiss heel, but I thought it would be interesting to sort of bully myself into doing some better heel flap and gusset kind of things maybe. So I'm just going to knit the heel however the designer says to. But I'll have to do some fiddling to make slightly different stitch counts work. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll worry about that when I get to it, and if it doesn't work, I'll do a short row heel. The yarn that I'm using is Drops Nord. This is like alpaca. I don't know what percentage wool and what percentage alpaca it is, but it's a wool alpaca blend plus nylon. I guess that might make it slightly less durable. I should really make some more durable socks. I did a big clean out of my yarn stash the other day and I found my two big skeins of West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply or whatever it's called. I have one in cream and one in green, and I think those will make some lovely socks. And that's a pretty hard wearing yarn, I feel, so those will be my good boot socks. I wear Doc Martens all winter. so my socks are going to suffer. And I want to be able to actually wear them, because what's the point otherwise? Anyway, this is quite fun. There are a lot of patterns I want to knit, but this one stood out to me as being pretty simple, but really nice looking. And I just enjoyed doing lace for the first sock, so let's do another lace sock, I guess. They're just so cute. I love how they look so much. On to my next work in progress. I'm not hanging around. I'll see if I can untangle this one. It only has one ball of yarn. There are unfortunately two projects here that are tangled together and which use the exact same yarn. So I can't tell which of these are attached to this project and which are attached to the other. So, you guys know I love a ribbed knit camisole. I have several. I've worn them in several of these videos. It's August, so I figured I can knit one or two more. And so the one that was top of my list of ribbed knit camisoles that I've seen lately and been really excited about is the twist loop top by Other Loops. I just joined it under the arms, so it doesn't look like much, but you can kind of see. It's a ribbed camisole, but the ribbing is twisted right down the front. So this is the first twist. There's another one down here. I'm just about to start doing it, I think. And then I think there's maybe one more. So yes, it'll look a lot better once I've put the ribbed collar on, and it has, I think, I-cord around the arms. I've literally just joined it under the arm, like as I was having coffee before I started filming. So we still have a way to go on this. Like I said, every project, the socks, camisoles, everything, these are all the C-knit interchangeable needles. So the yarn that I'm using for this is Drops Flora. It is absolutely not a summer yarn. Off the top of my head, I believe it's 65% wool and 35% alpaca. I originally cast this top on with Knitting for Olive cotton merino, which is a great summer yarn, but something about how the cotton was interacting with the ribbing and the cable just didn't really speak to me, and so I ripped it out. And I stole this Flora from another project, which is a work in progress, which I'm going to show you in just a second, and which I therefore don't think I'm going to have enough yarn for. Also because Letherby, the puppy, has got one of the balls of Flora too and just shredded it all over the garden. So we're down like 3-4 balls on however much I bought for this jumper. Anyway, it's £1.50 ball. I don't have the type of huge yarn stash where I'm like, ooh, I don't want to use this yarn for a camisole, so I'll just pick out another 4-ply weight yarn. Like everything in my stash pretty much has a purpose, unless it's scrap, in which case it's sorted by weight so that I can make scrappy projects with a bunch of colours eventually. But the thing is, when I knit a camisole, it isn't just a summer knit. I know I said I wear this like weekly, multiple times a week during summer, but I actually wore this all autumn and all winter too. Sometimes you're in a warm space and you don't want to be wearing a jumper, and more often than not, if I'm wearing a knit jumper and I want to stay toasty outside, then I want a nice warm inner layer to wear underneath, and my knit camisoles are always reached for then as well. All the camisoles I had last winter got so much wear underneath other jumpers, and so I feel like having one of these made with a winter fibre is not the worst idea in the world. What I will say though is both in how smooth the stitches are and in how warm and wintry this feels, they really support me thinking it's always worthwhile buying the Knitting for Olive merino for camisoles like this. It always looks beautiful, the stitches look really even, the stitch definition is lovely. There is the cotton merino option if you want something even summerier, but honestly I don't find these merino ones to be too warm at all. The UK did get up to 40 degrees. It wasn't 40 degrees here, I think it was like 39. It was pretty hot, and I was wearing 2 pieces of knitwear all day and I was totally fine. I just always found myself reaching for knit clothing. I really like it, even in the summer. If you can hear Rolo snoring, he's a pug chihuahua cross, so he just breathes loudly, you know? I'm knitting the size extra small. I have so far knitted exactly to pattern. I probably will continue to knit it exactly to pattern. The only change that I might make is I might do decreases down the sides. I did that on my square neck camisole, which I was wearing and talking about 2 episodes ago, and I really like how it fits. It's actually still got quite a lot of room here for that nice little flare before you tuck it into your trousers, but it still gives you more shape. So I think that might be really nice. I also just find that these camisoles tend to stretch out quite a lot over time. Even after you've blocked them, the more wear, the more the rib opens out, and so they end up a lot bigger than you're expecting. I only did one set of decreases on the square neck camisole, but I think I could have done two, and so I might do 2 ribs worth of decreases here as well. Okay, so talking of the project that I stole that yarn from, this is not a new work in progress. If you followed me on Instagram since day one, I think I started doing Instagram in spring of 2021, so like a bit over a year ago. This is one of the first projects that I posted on there. This is the sweater number 15, maybe, by My Favourite Things Knitwear. I think I started knitting it pretty immediately after the pattern released, and it has been sitting in this state since May, maybe June of last year. In case you haven't noticed, I'm pretty good about finishing projects. I don't tend to have that many work in progress pieces on the needles, and once I start knitting something, I knit it pretty consistently until it's done. Every episode so far, I think, everything that's been a work in progress in one episode has been a finished object in the next episode. That's generally how I do these things. The trouble is, as soon as I set aside a project, that's it, you know? Like, I'm then streamlined working on the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and so I very rarely go back to previous pieces. So I wanted to feature this work in progress, which has been sitting in this exact state for over a year, in this video, because it'll sort of hold me accountable to pick it up, put it back on nice needles. This is literally like the cord off my drops, like 20-pound interchangeable needles. That's how you know it's old. I used to use those drops metal interchangeable needles that cost about 20 quid. This is knitted in drops Flora and drops Kid Silk. The Flora is the same one that I used for the twistly top. I don't think I mentioned the colour. I should actually mention the colour. This colour is, oh dear, made a bit of a mess of this. This colour is called White Fog, I think. And I sound very silly talking about this to people because it's white. But I think there are like 3 different whites that drops do. They're named slightly differently depending on which yarn it is. But this one is really nice. It's not too white. White things just stress me out because I feel like I'm going to get them dirty. I'd rather have like a cream, but I feel like a lot of creams pull quite yellow, and this one does not at all. It's like a cool toned, very light grey. Yeah, it's like a pale, cool grey. And it's lovely. I've paired it with this mohair. This is also drops Kid Silk. I was broke then, I'm still broke now. This is cheap yarn. This is, I think it's called light beige, but these beige drops Kid Silk colours really read as very grey. Like, most people would describe this as a grey. I will describe this as, if it was a Copic marker, it would be a warm grey 3. Maybe. In any case, as old as this is, there are a lot of projects I set aside because I no longer love the design or I no longer love the yarn. I still think this is a really beautiful colour that I would wear all the time. I think it's a lovely pattern. It has these really cool like shoulder increases with the cables. Try and get it so you can actually see it. The cables travel down here and then down the back. It's really cool. It's a lovely jumper and I see it on other people and I think it's great, but I just haven't got around to picking it up. So this is me making a commitment. I probably won't have this finished next video. I have a bunch of other stuff I'm working on and I will prioritise finishing summer tops so that I can wear them before the end of the summer. But I will at the very least have got this onto some nice needles and will have picked up and knitted a few rows and made some progress. Like figured out where I am in the pattern or whatever. By the next episode. Hold me to it. I'm going to get this thing finished for autumn because it's a beautiful jumper and I really do want to wear it. I might have to buy another couple skeins of yarn. So that is 3 work in progress done. We're getting there. All I have left is a couple of swatches that I wanted to show. This is a very chaotic pile of knitwear, and so locating these swatches may be something of a challenge. Okay, swatch number 1. It's beige, yay. So, 2 episodes ago, I showed and spoke about a pattern that I'm releasing probably in like 2 or 3 weeks if everything goes to plan. It's called the Step by Step sweater, and it is a very plain raglan sweater. I didn't think that it was anything new or revolutionary or a pattern that desperately needs to be released, but basically I wanted to make a video tutorial on how to knit your first jumper for people who haven't really knitted before, and I wanted it to have an accompanying pattern so that you can compare what's being done in the video to what's written in the pattern, and hopefully that'll give people a bit more confidence to pick out written patterns in the future and knit them. Like, I know a lot of people learn to knit and crochet and stuff by watching YouTube videos showing them what to do rather than following written patterns, and so I sort of hoped it would be a nice transition step between the two. So I wrote up this very plain raglan jumper pattern. I have written it up. The pattern is pretty much done. I'm not getting it tested in every size because it's a free pattern, and I always feel like when most of what testers get as a reward is the pattern and another pattern, testers just get a really bad deal in general, I'm not gonna lie. I feel okay asking people to test for me because I've also tested for a lot of other people, so like I give to the knitting community and I receive from the knitting community, but for a free pattern it just felt wrong asking people to knit it up when it's potentially in more of an unfinished state. In any case, it seems to look really great on the people who knitted it. It's a very quick jumper to knit, and I really enjoy it. It's definitely too heavy to wear at the moment, so I haven't got much wear out of it, but when the weather gets colder I will. The only thing is, every time I wear it, it doesn't have any short row neck shaping, which was a very deliberate choice because I feel like if it is your first time knitting, that could be quite intimidating, especially because if you're knitting a top-down raglan jumper, the short row shaping happens here. It's one of the first things you knit. And so before they get into the nice, comfy joy of knitting a bunch of stockinette with no thoughts, they have to do the short rows. And I don't want people to be put off so quickly. Like, I was even worrying about a long tail cast on. Like, that's already a slightly, like, it's probably the hardest part of the jumper, right? Like, it's mildly confusing. So I'm worried about including difficult techniques right at the very start. And so I didn't put any short rows in. And I think that was the right choice. However, I would really like this free pattern to be more than just something that could be somebody's first jumper. I wanted it also to be a pattern which a more experienced knitter can look at for free, can easily make modifications to, and just can use as a brain-empty, quick stockinette pattern. And for that it has to be right, you know? Like, it can't be feeling like a beginner piece with a slightly suboptimal neckline. And so I'm writing optional short rows. These won't be tested by anyone other than me, unfortunately, as my testers have already knitted it up. But I'm going to write them and knit one more sample myself. I also included instructions in the pattern for two different necklines, a sort of mock turtleneck or funnel neck kind of thing, and also for a round neck. And so I'd quite like to have a sample of each. The other reason I thought it would be nice to knit a second sample before I release the pattern is that it's knitted in drops Nepal with no mohair to make it a very affordable pattern for a first time knitter. But I thought it would be kind of cool to knit it in some slightly nicer yarns, do a mohair option, just so that you can see what it looks like if you want something a little bit more premium. So, I had this in stash. This is actually the most uninspiring cake of this yarn that I have. All of the others have a lot more sort of variation in colour visible on them. This is noro tennen. I really like noro yarn. It tends to be very colourful and very not me, but they do some really cool muted yarns which still have colour and texture to make them interesting. The super popular Noro Silk Garden Sock Solo, the colour number 1, Omitama, is a great example. So is the Noro Kakigori that I knitted my June top in the first episode. This Noro Tennen is another example. It's got some stripes from sort of darker to lighter colours. It's got a lot of variation in thickness. It's been pretty tricky for me to find something to knit with this yarn because the variation in colour and the uneven texture that it gives is a pretty statement look on its own, at least by my standards. I'm boring. And so it needed a really plain jumper to show it off. Needle size is also hard, right? Like if you're knitting on small needles, you get these really chunky bobbly bits when the yarn is spun more thickly, and you also get very sparse sections if you knit on a more medium-sized needle where it's spun more thinly. So I have mohair. This is the same mohair that I'm using for the sweater number 15. This sort of grey beige drops kid silk. I think it's called light beige. This is colour number 2, I think, smoky. I got it a year ago maybe. I think I got it from Laughing Hens, which has a great selection of noro yarn, and it was 40% off at the time. This stuff is maybe discontinued, I can't really tell. Noro is weird about releasing new yarns and discontinuing them like left, right and centre, and it's not always easy to find all the yarns in the UK, so I don't know where you can get this or if you even can. But I bought 4 hangs, I think they're 100 grams each, and they run maybe 250 metres, so I think I have 1,000 metres of it, which should be plenty. I don't remember exactly how much I used for my first sample of this jumper, but it was a lot less than that. The mohair I find really helps fill in the gaps when the yarn is more thinly spun, so it doesn't look so gappy. But I was worried about using mohair originally because I thought it would hide some of the cool colour and texture variations, but actually I really like how this looks. Like I said, this is one of the more uninspiring cakes of tennen that I have, but you can probably still see it's got these darker places, it has some more white bits in it, and also, I don't know if you can even see on camera, I might have to put in a picture, but it has these little sort of loose threads. Like, I know it kind of looks like I've missed with my needle and missed the mohair loop and there's a little mohair silk loops hanging out, but it's actually just part of the tennen. It has these little pieces of silk thread in it. Off the top of my head, I think the fibre content is 50 wool, 25 alpaca, 25 silk, so it's a little bit special. And it just feels good to have a yarn that's been sitting in stash while I've been waiting for a project that will do it justice, and finally finding something and thinking, yes, that will work. I think this will be beautiful, and it'll be a very speedy knit, and it's exactly my type of colour that I wear all the time, so it'll be a very frequently worn jumper in the autumn, I think. And yeah, I just think it contrasts really nicely with my striped drops and pull version of this jumper to really show the possibilities. And I'm excited to knit it. We're almost there. I have one more swatch I wanted to show. Where's my last swatch? Here. Ooh, it's a little bit damp, so it got scrunched up. This is tiny. So I did mention that I cast on the twist loop top with cotton merino from Knitting for Olive. I bought it to knit a dress. I ended up, I think I was planning on holding it with the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in cream as well, but then I ended up stealing that to knit that last minute scarf for John's May ball, and I knitted it with 2 strands. So while I plan on frogging the scarf, I don't think I can separate the 2 strands, and so that mohair is going to have to be used for something else. I was thinking a little mohair cardigan or something. In any case, it can no longer be used for this dress, so I have this Knitting for Olive cotton merino, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. I didn't like how sort of uneven it looked with the cables and how the ribbing, it just wasn't super neat, you know? And so I thought that if I design a pattern which sort of embraces that texture more, I'd enjoy it a bit more. So I wanted to do lace. I've wanted an all-over lace camisole for a while. I've seen a few, but none of them are quite right for me. I wanted to knit it on 3mm needles because anything else just feels a bit chunky, and I don't love, just personally, the contrast of a lacy pattern with a chunky yarn, and so I felt like this was perfect. This little swatch I'm really happy with the outcome of. I did a few little increases here. I have a plan for the silhouette of the top. It's going to be a camisole. It's going to be square neck with a big chunky double knit strap, which is what I enjoy. It's sort of inspired by the silhouette of this one old camisole top that I bought like fast fashion years ago that I've worn quite a lot, and I'd really like a fancy lace special hand knitted version of it. So yes, I'm going to try and get this knitted up. Because I use the same set of needles for everything, I can't start until I've got the twist loop top off the needles, but this will be my next thing, and hopefully I'll have something to show on it next episode, but no guarantees. So we finally made it through everything. Thank you so much for watching. My camera is about to die, so I will let it have a little rest. I will be back again in 2 or 3 weeks, probably, with another episode. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. Oh, we made it.